Hello and welcome to your Libra January 2020 reading. It's very good to see you. I'm Nigel Saint James. For those of you who just stopped by for the first time, welcome back to my subscribers, and for those of you who drop in quite regularly, I certainly appreciate your loyalty, and it gives me great pleasure to provide these readings to you each month. Well, I'm using a deck which was given to me by my daughter, and it was quite an interesting backing to it. She found it in a flea market of all things, and what I've found with it is that I get great results from it, is the first thing that I'll say. The other thing that I'll say is that it has interspersed among it the Eastern I Ching hexagrams, which have particular divinatory meanings. It also has dispersed among it the Nordic rune symbols, you know, those things that come on those little stones. And so it has a very earthy feeling to it. And so this reading will be quite earthy, hence I'm using this thing which I've prayed over, which infuses these cards with spirit. And there's also mystical lettering from ancient Near East mystical traditions as well as North American and ancient Egyptian mystical depictions in some of the cards, but not on every card. So it depends what comes up, of course, but when these things do arise, we shall see what it is that they mean for you. Anyway, let's get things underway. This is appropriate for your Libra Sun, Libra Moon, Libra Rising, and in fact, if you have Libra, a lot of planets in your Libra birth chart, then this is also appropriate for you. Well, let's start, shall we, and see what there is. Come on, who's coming out first? Well, let's just pull something out from in between these things. There is the Three of Swords. Here is the Three of Wands. A couple of threes. Threes are good numbers, I think. I love the number 3, and I'll go into that perhaps when we get into the reading. Depends what messages are coming through. Just take this off the top, whatever it happens to be. The Two of Stones. See, there's those I Ching hexagrams on those 3 cards there. So we'll have a look to see how they work and interact with one another. In addition to the tarot, I react to this deck differently to those that other decks I use. And if you go onto the channel and check my playlists out, you'll see the yearly reading and say December, for example, where the decks I use are different and I have different reactions again. But there's the Daughter of Stones in the West. Interesting. See, there's that Native American influence going to be coming through there, the mystical tradition of Native Americans, but allied also very much with the astrology. There is the Nine of Wands. That's a good card for you. Come down. Let's have a good close look at these cards together while I do the reading for you. Okay, let me just get the vibe. Let's start with this Three of Swords. Now, you see, in a tarot reading, this is interesting, isn't it? This is the first card that's been drawn, and yet when we see how the energies play out for you during the month, this card actually takes a lesser meaning than it might ordinarily do. And cards, of course, mean different things in different spreads. Certainly, you will know from my readings that I use a lot of the psychic energy that's associated with the imagery, and particularly the importance of the placement of the cards is paramount. Here we have the Three of Swords. Now, the numerology of 3 means extension. It means increase. It has associated with it the planet of Saturn for me, and it refers to an area of divine emanation prior to the emergence of the material universe from out of spirit, of gestation, of the creation of something, the growing of a fetus, if you like, within it. I notice you've got an I Ching down there as well. We'll have a look at that in just a moment. But first of all, let me talk something about the astrology of the card. It is, for me, Saturn ruling the second decan of your sign, Libra, around the 3rd to the 12th of October. That would be the second 10 to 20 degrees of your sign, I think. Now, I have Saturn in the card, and I have Saturn in Libra for the astrology. Now, as you probably know, Saturn is exalted in Libra, and so I think that you can ordinarily expect really good things to come from here. But because we have Saturn with this number 3, there is, in a sense, as well as Saturn in the card, there is a dampening down. Saturn is about limits, about restrictions, time, form, and formality. And in the suit of swords, swords is the product of the suits of cups and wands, of fire and water. And so we might expect to have some degree of instability associated with this. It represents in some way the fact that swords can sometimes be quite difficult. Now, you might have, there's a great degree of intensity associated with this card, but I'd ask you to bear this in mind, and it is that every problem contains within it its own solution. And that is particularly important for you this month, and you are going to have the strength and the energy to overcome problems, as we'll see in just a moment. Now, let me see if I can focus down a little easier on this Chinese hexagram from the I Ching. Now, how the I Ching works is there are a series of broken and unbroken lines. The broken lines, as these two on the bottom are, represent the Ying principle, and which is feminine, and unbroken lines represent Yang principle, which is masculine. Now, where we have two broken lines on the bottom with 4 unbroken lines on the top, I see that as being the character of, that be, I'd say it's to do with, I'd call it Tun. Tun is the Chinese expression for it. Now, what is important is that there is, I think, a great, and Tun is about disengaging from things. There's a lot of energy coming through underneath this card for you. Now, the idea here is really that of not throwing more wood onto the fire, and that in a way is a sort of a cornerstone of Taoist philosophy from ancient China. Now, in your dreams, you see how all symbols and even characters can mirror aspects of yourself, and you are examining and either adopting or discarding things in your dreams that you come across. But because the hidden influence is that of great degree of intensity coming through here, I think we can see that a situation calling for what I'd call a retreat is a heavily charged energy that's coming in here. You give charge to a situation that pushes your buttons, but that energy coming underneath here, that intensity which is coming to meet you, always brings you face to face with transformative opportunities that reside within your shadow self. The fact that there is so much charge makes the object of the thing that you are thinking about an important one, there's no doubt about that. However, you can't force your will on the situation, because the situation, and you'll know what it is when you see it, is there to teach you something. It's better to step back and reflect on what it is that you are learning. Now, when I say don't throw more wood on the fire, what I mean is that emotional reactions between people really stoke a fire to the extent that sometimes it can burn out of control. Now, where you think that you should push in further into that situation, that would be the wrong thing to do, because now is the time to retreat or disengage from such a aggravating situation or an emotionally charged situation. Because when you engage an obstacle, you only give it more power. And the same also holds, because I'm cognizant that this is in the suit of swords, The same also holds true when you think about negative thinking, really. Because you give those ideas credibility due to the charge, the energy that you carry with you and which you give to them. Yeah. Backing down doesn't mean you fail, because it can create much greater success. And if you step back, I'm pretty sure that what you will do here is you will find a win-win solution. Well, let's look at something else with a hexagram. This is the two. Now, as I say, here comes all the good things for the rest of you in this spread. This is the famous Two of Stones. And this Two of Stones, in a way, is kind of providing the same sort of message as was provided by that I Ching in this thing here. We have here what I call the Lord of Harmonious Change. It is Jupiter ruling the first decan of Capricorn, that 23rd of December to the 2nd of January. Now, although this is potentially inharmonious, because Jupiter is all about expansion, and Capricorn is all about conservatism and practicality, this high up, this number 2, this high up in the suit next to the ace where it is, I don't think that the astrology there is going to be any problem at all. In fact, I think what I do see with you is movement, flux, having ups and downs, growth through change, multitasking. I think maybe a heavy workload, but I think you're going to be enjoying your work. And I think what will happen is that you'll come to know and come across a welcome change which is going to move you into a better place. I'd have this affirmation in mind. Let me just pull this out for the time being so you can see it in the context of the others. I'd have this affirmation in mind, and that is, I trust in the harmony of my life and in the flow of my life. In every day and in every way, I am getting better and better. Now, I think you need to learn to go with the flow in your life in some way, and trust in the process of change so that you can find harmony and balance. You know, sometimes constant changes in fortune can make things difficult or act as sort of temporary barriers of getting things off the ground. And I think that what's coming up here, this energy is saying that there is nothing financially or materially set in stone at the moment. But I do think that what this card is doing you is to remind you to make sure that your day-to-day affairs are in order. Now, it might sound like a bit of a drag, but making sure that the credit card statements are paid and the utility bills are paid and what have you, that's important. It's good management of your practical affairs and finances. But if you do go and sort out those more mundane sort of tasks, then it's going to leave you time to actually enjoy and to engage in the more productive things that are going on and are coming into your life. Now let's have a look at this I Ching character, shall we? What do we have here? Oh, interesting. 1, 2, 3 yings, a yang, and then a yin and a ying. Well, this is the I Ching hexagram called You, and the action there really is about exciting, about to excite. And this is called You. Now, You shows thunder over earth, and that could bring about new energy and inspiration to your situation. You know, in ancient times, people gathered around the fire at the end of winter sharing stories meant to jar the clan from out of stagnation. And in ancient China, let me pull this out. In ancient China, it was believed that thunder ignited the seeds into rebirth. You was believed to be the energy that connects people to the gods. It is associated with arts and music and any inspirational work that really ignites your imagination and lifts you out of this world for a while. The trick is to work with this enthusiastic and inspired energy in a way that you don't get lost in it. Now, this symbol, for me, can also act as a warning to take off your rose-colored glasses if you are still waiting for that answer when all the signs have already told you all that you need to know. Now, enthusiasm shouldn't be confused with the law of attraction. Yeah. I'm getting the feeling here of a child. The child doesn't know and operates without any preconceptions. Trusting the wild and powerful, to use that Eastern animal like an elephant, can be both good and bad. Enthusiasm needs to be grounded in moderation. Otherwise, it can lead to escapism or even to pipe dreams. Now, when I speak of that elephant, which comes up in ancient Chinese tradition, the elephant embodies the creative power of emotion, which, when harnessed, tramples any barriers to forward progress. And I think what's happening here is that you are being asked to connect with this innocent enthusiasm for inspiration and to inspire others. This hexagram, for me, is one which combines how walking the path, allowing life to guide you, and meeting experience innocently will create joy and enthusiasm that makes all things possible. Like a child, those who don't know what can't be done accomplish great things, don't they? So align your will with the way and believe that anything is possible. I really have the feeling from this that something magical is on the horizon. So stay grounded while you look for that magical elephant to ride upon. And here is another card now which speaks of your ability to take that magic into your life and to make something from it. Now, here we have a card which the author or the artist calls White Buffalo Woman. Look, I'm familiar from my readings of several years ago with a supernatural being in North American Indian culture that was called White Buffalo Calf Woman. And White Buffalo Calf Woman was referred to by a recent North American Indian chief from the Lakota tribe, which is part of the Sioux Nation, and its lands, their lands today would, I suppose, be in North and South Dakota, in those states in continental North America. And his name was Black Elk. Now, Black Elk, I think, died around about 1950 or in the late 50s or something like that. In any event, he was a great visionary. And he gave the story of the supernatural origins of this White Buffalo Woman as follows. There was a time, according to the legend, that there was famine, and the chiefs of the Lakota people at the time sent out a couple of warriors to go and find food. Now, as they were doing so, in the distance they saw a very attractive young woman. One of the warriors said, "Oh, I might go and approach that girl and have her to become a wife of mine." And the other guy stepped back and said, "No, don't go near her because she seems to me to be a holy woman." Anyway, the first went up and embraced her, whereupon a white cloud came down on the woman and the man who was embracing her, completely obscuring them both, and then it disappeared, and all that was left was the woman herself still standing and a pile of bones that had been the man. Well, the other warrior took an arrow and put it into his bow, and the woman looked out and spoke to him in the Lakota language and said, "Look, don't do this, don't worry. I can look into your heart and I can see that it is pure." And he said, well, she's speaking Lakota, so she must have something to say. In any event, she told him that she did have supernatural origins, and that warrior should go back to the tribe and prepare a feast for her when she was to arrive, because she was going to bring a number of ceremonies that the tribe would be able to undertake for their spiritual development. And she also brought with them, according to Black Elk, the pipe that is smoked in ceremonial practices, which assist one to raise into different states of consciousness. She also said that if you do these things, then your tribe will rise up again. The other thing is that buffalo were considered to be sacred by these people, sacred creatures as such, and also the buffalo could bring and impart messages from ancestors. Anyway, White Buffalo Woman, when she had finished imparting the spiritual knowledge to the tribe, she turned herself into a buffalo and, while snorting, ran off. And that's the background to that particular character, as I understand it. Now, I call her the Princess of the Echoing Hills, the Rose of the Palace of the Earth. Let me pull out here so you can see where she is. Who is going to be important to you during this period? I suspect it's... Now, she's an earth sign, and being earth and in the suit of earth, there's really no contradictions in her character. She'll be quite sedate, and I think it's somebody who could be a Taurus. You may even come across a Gemini or an Aries, I think, who'll be important to you during this period. Now, although she is the lowest court card, being the daughter, in the lowest of the suits, being the suit of stones, she carries with her all of the energies of the other suits and transforms them back into the energy, transforms it almost like a cosmic reincarnation back into the other suits and court cards. She's a person who's beautiful and strong, generous and proud, and somebody who is benevolent. Someone who really, I think, follows their true will or purpose. And this is what you will be doing this time. You will, as a result of this stepping back from argumentation, which I think is going on here, you are going to start thinking about, look, rather than engaging, because... You know, if you deprive a hot situation of oxygen, the fire goes out, doesn't it? It can't continue fighting with no oxygen, so don't pump oxygen into things. I think what she's saying is that during this period, you're going to get in touch with that most important aspect of yourself and protect it, just as, you know, this woman was doing with the Lakota tribes women and tribesmen. Now, this can sometimes think, I'm just getting a feeling here, I think you might hear of pregnancy or birth around this time. This energy here for you represents a productive time after what you may consider to have been something of a barren stretch. I think she's peaceful by nature, and she doesn't deal well with conflict, and so again here, I'd be retreating from the conflict during this time. It's someone who I think really has a real interest in making things happen around the home, in making things, beautifying things around the home with cooking and making things happen in that direction of looking after children and of providing for children. It's a very beneficial card for people that are involved in that. But what it is it's a preeminently fertile energy that I'm getting here, both in the physical sense, but also in the sense of getting things done and making them happen for yourself. Now, talking about getting things done, let's have a look at this card. Well, you've got all I Chings on this thing, so this is quite interesting as well. And here we have this is the Nine of Wands. Yeah, the Nine of Wands. Oh, let me just see. Can you see that properly? Let me just pull that out a bit. There we go. Okay, well, here we have 9 wands. They look like spears, don't they? But we can tell they're wands because they have fire. It's in the suit of fire coming from the ends of them. The number 9 I love. It's a sacred number, and it has an association for me with the moon. The moon is associated with that. And in fact, not only do I see the moon as being associated with the number 9, but in the astrology of this card, I see the moon ruling the second decan of Sagittarius. You know, that 3rd to the 12th of December? So you have a double lunar influence as the moon rules both the decan of the astrology, that 10 to 20 degrees of Sagittarius, and it's also in the numerology of the card itself. So what does this have to say? I really call this card the Lord of Great Strength, and it is a card for me of long-acting endurance is what I see here. It's not something which needs to be thought about. This hexagram, I think, I've got a feeling it's got something to do with like military exercises or something, but I'll have a look at it in a second. This is endurance. It's about reaching into yourself to discover new depths of strength and power that you never thought you had. Now, you may well encounter obstacles. You may encounter obstacles when this comes up, but you will have the strength to overcome them. Now, I think I'm just looking at the position here, and it's below it. Well, it's below this 3 of wands, which I'm going to get to in just a second, and next to this very stable card of the 2 of stones there. Placed where it is, you can be reassured that you have what it takes to get by, all right? Even in times of difficulty. Right? Even in times of difficulty, you may have a strategic retreat from something, but you still have the energy and the strength to get by. Wait another time. Wait for the right time. Even in times of difficulty and stress, inner strength is going to rise up and guide you towards your goal. Now, in the process, you're going to learn more about yourself and your abilities, and you'll gain a new all-round perspective which brings security and self-confidence. I really would be paying attention to your dreams at this time, and I'd have this affirmation in mind, and it is this, that I know more and more clearly who I am. This recognition leads to the full development of my potential strength. Now let's have a closer look, shall we, at this I Ching that's here. Hello, I Ching. I Ching hexagram. Wow, look at all the feminine energy in this. Feminine, masculine, and the rest of it's all feminine on top. Well, having seen that, again, let's pull it out and have a look. I see that as being the hexagram called Shi, which is army, which means army. And Shi is a hexagram that focuses on correct discipline and organization. It kind of calls for the delegation of things to people and structured behavior where everyone's acting according to a routine. It's kind of like what happens in an army, isn't it? You know, you get the distribution of tasks to other people, and that might be something which you're doing in your life. I think it can, for you, remove the emotional component where one takes a defensive or an aggressive posture. Now that's obviously got things to say about this card that we looked here, but here we were saying that you probably would be well advised to take a strategic retreat, because armies, and this is the hexagram of the army, they do take strategic retreats, don't they? Now the army can relate to your inner strategy for pursuing work and even love, you know? As they say, all things are fair in love and war. Well, but more from the standpoint, I think, of how to conquer and succeed, kind of without giving much thought to anything else. You know, like, it's not in your spread, but you may be familiar with the Chariot card in Tarot. Well, like the Chariot in Tarot, this suggests a soldier disciplined enough to allow reason and forethought to overcome any emotional considerations. Well, this is really what we're getting the whole way through this, isn't there? Here, there is, I think, an element of the development of the willpower coming along here, very much so. And I think that ultimately you need to find a balance between the need to conform to others' expectations as opposed to your need to express your authentic identity. And we were getting this message coming through here as well, weren't we? So there's no coincidence in these things, are there? I think when you receive this message from Shu, I think it can be about a struggle that has become disjointed, you know, and requires some sort of organizational thought to turn it around in your favor. So don't fly in, come back, go with the flow with things just at the moment. Structure and, well, I won't say structure and attack, because I'm never about attacking people. Oh, yes, I am. I think it's important sometimes. And I think that it requires some sort of organizational thought, really, for you to turn things around in your favor. Yeah. Anyway, that message is very much consistent, isn't it, with what we're talking about here. Here's another I Ching. Oh, I told you there's some symbolism. You've got it all. You might have to change your passport after all of this. Let's have a look. What's this card here? Let's have a look at you. You are... who? The Three of Wands. Yeah, now I love this Three of Wands, and what I might do is... because I think I'm turning Chinese now. I'm going to look at this I Ching here. What's this? A yin, a yang, a yang, a yang, a yin, and a yang. Okay, that is the hexagram Ting, which means, how would you translate it? Cooking, like a cooking pot. It's a cooking pot. Really, what's going on, and I'll draw out now that we've looked at the thing itself. And you can just go up there for the moment. I'll concentrate on you here. What we have is really... it's really almost like the heroine's journey to fulfill her destiny. And when that happens, you are first called into an initiation, to be initiated. Now, you can choose to ignore that call or to follow it. Generally, the initiation begins when the ego has been wounded, or a path suddenly ends, or there's been a fight, or you think things aren't going to turn around. So this is often about the deeper aspects of our psyche and even our spiritual sense in a way. This is a very powerful hexagram, right? Very powerful hexagram with a message to you about you fulfilling your destiny and the enormous inspiration that you possess to accomplish your aims. Now, this cooking pot, I think, can show a situation in its beginning stages, such as, well, it could be taking a job to receive training, or in the early part of a relationship that is as yet undefined, or in going into a new stage of a relationship with someone with whom you're partnered. The cauldron, this cooking pot, is where the actual change is taking place. So the message can be, I think, give it time, something is still cooking. When you receive this, right, when you get this, your perspective starts to broaden in a far more, into a larger view of your life. Now, I think that there's a great degree of karma associated with here, but there's enormous power behind it, enormous power behind it. I think that with proper determination, this is saying to you, you will succeed on your authentic path, and success is assured. Well, we were talking, were we not, of digging deep to make things happen, but in particular that you do have the energy, you've got the spirits on your side to dig deep and to access realms of wells of strength and tenacity that you probably never even thought that you had. This can also, I've got to say, this can also portray enormous talent and also enormous insight that is available for you to tap. In a sense, you are the cooking pot, and for you, your inspiration is boundless. Well, from an astrological point of view, the situation for me actually gets even better because, well, first of all, I call this card, he calls it Virtue, I call it the Lord of Established Strength. Well, he or she, I actually don't know who did this. I think I told you my daughter found this without a box or papers or anything in a flea market and gave them to me. Fortunately, all the cards were contained in it. But I call this card the Lord of Established Strength. And the astrology of the card for me is the Sun in the second decan of Aries. Right? The Sun, now this is fantastic because in ordinary astrology, the Sun is also exalted in Aries, and so this planetary placement is extremely favorable for you. Now, Aries enjoys challenges, and Aries suns are happiest when their lives are moving forward and when they're active. What do I see for you? I see ideas crystallizing. Well, that's not surprising. I think, given the types of the things that we're talking about here, really a confirmation that you are on the right path. I think there's a chance that a hobby could become a business if that's the type of thing you've been thinking about, or you might be thinking about how you might turn it into a business. If you are involved in a small business, I see this as being a period in which your revenues may well expand. I think your business could expand. There could be some more sales going on here. I'd have this thought in mind that I have the power and virtue to reflect and to know. This 3 is really, as I said earlier, it represents that aspect of the divine emanation, which is almost like the divine mother, which gives the gestation in which the fetus of the cosmos begins to grow. And what happens here is that you now have what I think was that impulse to create now being gestated within you, and you've now got the direction. The result of this reading is that you'll come out of it with the direction about which way to go. I think it's important for you to operate from a place of integrity, though, before reaching any decisions at the moment, and to have clarity of mind and clarity of heart. Right, before taking any action if you want to get the best results. And unless you do have that clarity, then don't act at all. But if you do have clarity, now is the time to act. This is a bit about looking, I think, inside and outside with integrity, honesty, and no compromises. So I'll say this also, though, and it's just something which is coming up with me. It may be... and don't take it in a bad way for them, but I think it could be useful for you to maybe just check the integrity of an Aries that you're dealing with. Just check the truth of what it is that they're saying, or just do an assessment, like a sanity check on their actions and their motivations and things like that. Well, what a great way to end for you. Fantastic month. And so it should be, because you are a legend. That's the way it is for you this month. Well, there you go, January 2020. I have to say this, that you were absolutely fantastic during that reading, and I loved doing it for you. I think this is going to be a great year for you, and have a fantastic January. And all I have to say is this, and remember always that you are a legend, and I look forward to seeing you again next month. Until then, bye for now.